Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on any purchase over $10. See the description below for details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. It is Mythic Championship weekend. I hope you have a chance to watch at least a little bit of the coverage over the course of the weekend. But for now, it's time to get into what is happening in the secondary market as we do every Saturday. We'll be looking at standard cards, modern cards, legacy and vintage cards, a lot of commander cards again, a little bit of Pauper too. So before we get into it, just a fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to support the channel. Our Patreon page is down there. You're also going to find links to products on Amazon. If you make any purchases on Amazon, once you go through one of those links, we'll get a small percentage. Finally, Flipside Gaming, you saw it at the top of the show. Still offering a promo code. If you use that promo code, that helps us out a lot too. But as always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all of you. You've all made the channel what it is, so thank you. And let's get into the cards. All right, we're going to begin as we always do with the top 5 standard legal cards that have lost value this week. Just like we've done over the last few weeks, we're not going to talk about Ravnica Allegiance cards in particular in this video. I did a companion video on those a couple days ago, so I will link that at the end in case you missed it. But for today, we're going to look at everything else. Before we get to our top 5, though, I do have one honorable mention. It is Doom Whisperer, down 32 cents to 9.67. This is a great commander card, and that's the main reason I wanted to point it out. It is going down in value, and it is going to go down more in value before it finally stabilizes. Now, the reason it has been losing value is because it has not been seeing as much play in the new standard environment compared to the previous one. There are a few decks running it. Sometimes you'll find a variant on Esper Control, or Sultai Campaign will run this card, but that deck doesn't feel like it's really catching on, at least not yet. So I would watch this one closely over the next few weeks. You might be able to find a deal. Number 5, Vraska Relic Seeker goes down 38 cents to 6.63. Last standard season, this card started off relatively strong in those Golgari mid-range decks. However, as time went on, those decks started playing this less and less, and now that we're in the new season, most of the Golgari mid-range decks have morphed into the Sultai mid-range decks. So do those decks or the Golgari variants play this anymore? Sometimes. Most of the time you don't see any copies. Sometimes you'll find a one-of. Considering how little play this card is now seeing in standard, this will lose some more value before it stabilizes. Number 4, Karn, Zion of Urza, down 59 cents to $20.39. Karn is kind of an enigma. He shows up all the time, but he doesn't show up consistently. Like, he'll show up in a standard deck, and then a legacy deck, and then a modern deck, then a vintage deck. But then the very next week, those same deck builds that are successful aren't running any copies of him. He kind of comes and goes, bobs and weaves. Is he ever going to find a permanent, consistent home? Yeah, at some point he will. Here's the deal, though. It's a good card. Pretty soon it's going to be under $20. As a matter of fact, if you shop around, it's already under $20. But maybe if you wait a few more weeks, you might be able to grab these for closer to the $17 mark, something like that. That's not a bad deal if you're trying to pick up a playset for the future, and I would recommend that, because one of two things could happen. War of the Spark is coming, which is going to be Planeswalker focused. That could create a home for him in standard, maybe. Or the other thing you might see is just over time, as more cards get added to modern or even legacy and vintage, this card could find more consistent homes and could go up in value. So definitely, if you don't have a playset, I would think about picking one up before the War of the Spark previews start. Number 3 is Nexus of Fate. This is the Buy a Box promo for Magic 2019 and can only be found in foil. It goes down 90 cents this week to $25. This card has been performing pretty well recently in standard, and we'll have to see what the final results of the Pro Tour are this weekend. If one of those decks does well, you could potentially see this stabilize quickly and maybe increase again. But it is coming off a pretty large spike, and the card was a little expensive, which is why it has been going down over the last couple weeks. There are some people, too, that think it might get banned because we saw the awkward banning in Magic Arena for Best of 1, but I don't really think that's going to be the case. I do think realistically, though, you might see less people playing this card in standard as the format evolves a little bit over the next few weeks, and that could help the price stabilize as well. But right now, you're finding this in a number of different variants of Nexus decks. Bant Nexus, Simic Nexus, 4-color Nexus, Nexus of Gates, other variants too. In Modern, you'll find this occasionally in like Sultai Teaching Reclamation or Bant Turbofog, but in those decks, it's only a one-of typically in the main. Number 2, Carnage Tyrant goes down $1 to $26.54. This continues to lose value. I don't think that's actually going to change in the coming weeks because Hydroid Crisis is just pushing this card out of a lot of places now. And it's not gone. I mean, many times Sultai Midrange will still run a copy of this in the main. Not all the time, but sometimes. Most consistently right now in Standard, you'll find this in like Simic Nexus sideboards, typically like 2 copies. Modern, you'll still find this in the occasional sideboard as a one-of, in decks like Titan Breach as well. Number 1 is Blood Crypt, but it is the one from Dissension, going down $1.74 to $23. This card spiked recently, so you're just seeing a little bit of snapback, which is not unusual. Whenever a card spikes quickly, a lot of folks will go to their binder, see if they have copies they're not using, and they will go ahead and sell them, put them back out in the marketplace. Or sometimes stores will see the price going up, and if they have some local inventory, they'll go ahead and push them over to the online market to try to move them quickly. So that's why many times you'll see these spikes followed by some normalization, and that's what's happening here. Now, this card does see some standard play, obviously, because it is standard legal with the printing in Ravnica Allegiance, but it's not seeing a ton of play compared to some of the other Shocklands right now. You will find this in Rakdos mid-range decks, for example, but those decks aren't doing as well as many of the other decks right now in the format. However, the reason this card has been hot recently is Modern. It's in a lot of big decks. Dredge, Grixis Death Shadow, Jund, Hollow One, Mardu Pyromancer, and more. Alright, let's move on to the top 5 standard legal cards that have gained value this week. First, we do have an honorable mention again, though. It's Chart a Course, going up 29 cents to $3.10. This is moving a lot for an uncommon. Why is that? Well, it's seeing play in a lot of big standard decks right now, including Mono Blue Aggro and Is It Drakes. Number 5, Hostage Taker, goes up 38 cents to $4.50. This card has been quiet recently, but it is now seeing more standard play, which of course means the card will go up in value. That's what you're seeing here. Now, the Golgari midrange decks I mentioned earlier are turning into Sultai midrange decks for the most part in Standard, and the main reason for that is Hydroid Crisis. However, if you're going to put blue into your Golgari deck, why not play Hostage Taker as well? It's pretty good. So you will find many of those decks running some quantity of these between the main and the sideboard. Also, many times you'll find this out of the sideboard of Esper Control, another popular Standard deck right now. Number 4, Mistcloaked Herald for Magic 2019. It goes up 52 cents to $2.37. Remember, you cannot get this in packs of Magic 2019. You can only find one copy in the Blue Welcome deck, which they give out to new players at game stores. So that's the reason the price for this card has gotten hiked up. If you want to play with this in the very popular Mono Blue Aggro deck right now, just buy the Rivals of Ixalan copies. You don't have to spend the extra money for this variant of it. And eventually, if you want this variant, it will go down in value. Don't buy it for $2.37. Number 3 is Entrancing Melody, up 69 cents to $1.70. This card is starting to catch on as a sideboard card in Standard right now. It's decent against Hydroid Crisis. I mean, it can deal with the threat on the board and kind of turn it against your opponent, but at the same time, they're also still getting the card draw and the life gains, so it doesn't completely nullify how good that card is or anything, but it is a defense, I suppose. And because of that, it is also showing up in Mono Blue Aggro sideboards, and Drake decks will run this in the sideboard. Also, occasionally you'll find a copy in the main. Number 2 is Vivian Reed, up 76 cents to $22.99. Vivian has actually been losing a lot of value recently because her price point was very high. It was too high, actually, for the amount of play she was seeing, but she is seeing more and more play every week, it seems, in these Sultai midrange decks. Usually 3 copies in the main is pretty standard at this point, so I'm not too surprised to see her starting to tick up, although I still think $23 is a little high for this card. Maybe once we get past Mythic Championship weekend, she might stabilize down a little bit. Number 1 is Mox Amber, up $1.20 to $9.69. Okay. So before I tell you the real reason this is going up, I do want to point out that I did see a BAMP midrange deck on Magic Online running 2 copies of this in the main floating around. I don't think that's going to catch on, but it's out there. Now, for the real reason this is increasing, there was a teaser trailer, of course, a few days back for War of the Spark, and a lot of people are speculating, based off what we saw in that trailer, that we could get a lot of Planeswalkers in that set. And so I don't know what that's going to look like exactly. Maybe all 15 of the Mythics will be Planeswalkers. Maybe we'll get Planeswalkers of lesser rarities. Who knows? Time will tell. But there is a chance, at least, based off what we saw there, that we might get a good cheap Planeswalker that could be part of a standard deck with this card next season. Because of that speculation, a lot of people jumped on this card this week. It will settle back down until we get closer to the previews. I think if any previews come out that look like they could work well with this card, then of course it will jump up again, and it might jump up aggressively at that point. So if you really want a play set, and I've always said you should have a play set of this card, and even if nothing comes out of this new set, at some point we're going to get cards in Modern that are going to play with this card well, right? It might not be this year, it might not be next year, it might not be 5 years from now, but when we do, this will go up in value. Okay, let's move on to the top 5 modern legal cards that have lost value this week. Number 5 is a card that was reprinted in Ultimate Masters as a Mythic. It's Emrakul, the Eons Torn from Rise of the Eldrazi, down $1.52 to $32.26. For the most part, this is stabilizing down because of that reprint, but the card does see play in modern decks, legacy decks, and vintage decks. It is banned in Commander, though, which kind of creates a ceiling for this card. Number 4, Send Triplets, goes down $1.53 to $31.04. This card has heated up recently. It's a great Commander card, really fun to build around. And I think part of the reason it got hot over the last few weeks is because of a new card, Tome of the Guild Pact. This is in Ravnica Allegiance, and it's not necessarily a card that's going to make you decide you want to go out there and play Send Triplets for the first time, but it's a good addition to the deck, and it was mentioned on the Command Zone podcast, which I think just brought more attention back to this card. Number 3, Privileged Position from Ravnica City of Guilds, goes down $1.73 to $12.99. This card got really hot last summer when the Adaptive Enchantment deck came out in that Commander 2018 series. This was a great pickup for an upgrade there. But since then, this card did get reprinted in the Selesnya Guild kit, and when that happened, the card started losing a lot of value, and that is continuing now. Number 2 is Snapcaster Mage from Modern Masters 2017. It goes down $2.28 this week to $65.50. This was also reprinted in Ultimate Masters as a rare, part of the reason why it has been softer. But I do think this will stabilize very quickly because it's in so many big modern decks right now. Grixis Death Shadow, Azorius Control, Jeskai Control also sees Legacy and Vintage play. Number 1 is Zusa Lost But Seeking, down $4.80 to $43.67. This is the one from Champions of Kamigawa. This card has gotten hot recently due to the fact that it's in the Amulet Titan deck, which has really caught on in recent weeks. Not only has it put up some good results, but I think a lot of people are speculating when KCI got banned that that deck could perhaps do better, and it certainly seems like that has been the case, at least so far. But with a big spike usually comes some normalization, and that's what we're seeing this week. Alright, we're doing it again. Top 10 modern legal cards that have gained value this week. I'm going to tell you, the modern market is crazy right now. You're going to see a lot of modern cards on here. You're going to see a lot of Commander cards on here, but they're all modern legal. Now, remember, too, we're only going top 10 and one honorable mention, so top 11, basically. There's a lot of cards we're not talking about today that are moving, so if you're interested in modern legal cards, stay really close to the market right now. Here's your honorable mention. It's Dark Confidant from Ravnica City of Guilds, going up $3.16 to $67.75. Bob got cold for a little while, and you started seeing a lot of deck builds dropping him, but as the meta shifted again, guess what? Bob has really picked up. And you're seeing him in a lot of important decks right now in Modern and Legacy. In Modern, you'll find him in Jund, Golgari Midrange, Legacy, Golgari Depths, as well as 4-color Loam, and also other Modern, Legacy, and Vintage builds too. Also, pay attention to the reprints of this card in the coming weeks. They are already starting to heat up. This one will go up the quickest and the highest because it does have that original art on it, and it is unique, but the other ones will follow. Number 10, Scalding Tarn. Alright, 2 copies here. Modern Masters 2017 goes up $2.85 to $89.99. Zendikar goes up $3.44 to $93.09. Of course, enemy color fetch lands, we know the deal here. They are hot, they are all going up in value. Once we saw that they were not going to be in Ultimate Masters, they started to heat up. Aside from that, though, this particular one is especially hot because of the play it's seeing right now in Modern. This is in things like Is It Phoenix, very popular deck right now. Grixis Death Shadow as well, and you're going to find this, of course, in other Modern, Legacy, and Vintage decks too. Number 9, Leyline of the Void. This is the Guild Pact version, going up $3.51 to $51. A lot of people thought this card would cool off when Krug Clan Ironworks was banned in Modern, and it did cool off for maybe about a week or so, but folks quickly realized that this is still a really important sideboard card in the format. On one hand, some people are trying to reinvent KCI without KCI, and maybe that will happen, maybe it won't, but even if it doesn't become a big thing, you still have Dredge out there, and maybe more importantly right now, Is It Phoenix? Just because of those decks alone, it's worth running this. Number 8 is Death Shadow from Worldwake, going up $3.58 this week to $18.99. I'm not too surprised to see this. This card has been undervalued for a while as part of that red hot Grixis Death Shadow deck in Modern, as well as some other variations of that deck that can perform well. Not to mention that I have seen variants of Death Shadow decks in Legacy and Vintage too, and they can put up a good result from time to time. Number 7 is Nether Trader, going up $3.81 to $11.72. This card is not moving because of Modern, it's moving because of Commander, and more specifically, because it is good in Teysa Karlov builds. Number 6, Jace the Mind Sculptor. World weight going up 446 to 120, Masters 25 going up 566 to 108.56. Wow, so Jace continues to remain hot. Not too surprising again. The card is all over the place. In Modern right now, you're going to find him in Azorius and Jeskai Control. He's also in a lot of Legacy, Vintage decks. He's great in Commander. This card has been a little bit quiet ever since that Masters 25 reprint, but I think those days are over. The question is, where is the ceiling for this card? Because I do think it hits the ceiling. Maybe for the world weight copy, it will be around 125 or so. The reprints may be less than that, but I do think it will go up a little more before it stabilizes. Number 5 is Surgical Extraction. 2 copies, Modern Masters 2015 going up 371 to 54.49. New Phyrexia going up 524 to 54.50. So on one hand, the reason this is going up is because of all the same reasons Leyline of the Void is going up. It's a good sideboard card right now in the Modern environment. However, there's a little more to it when it comes to this card this week. MTG Goldfish put out an Against the Odds Modern deck running this card as well as the next card we're going to look at, and it was called Kaya's Extraction. It was running 4 copies of Kaya Orzhov Usurper. It is one of those decks that I don't think is actually going to take off in Modern, but it did put some extra attention on the card. Number 4 is Extirpate. Planar Chaos goes up $4.48 to $15. Modern Masters going up $6.59 to $14.44. This card, of course, was part of that MTG Goldfish brew I just mentioned, but this was getting hot prior to that deck list coming out because a lot of people were picking this up as a budget option to Surgical Extraction because Surgical was just spiking so quickly. Also, some Legacy players actually do prefer this card in certain builds over Surgical Extraction because there are cards like Force of Will in that format. Alright, our top 3 cards on the list are moving because of Commander. Commander is just super hot right now. Number 3 is Grand Arbiter Augustin IV. Modern Masters goes up $5.94 to $19.93. Dissensions going up $6.76 to $20. So there's a few reasons this card is going up. First off, the Azorius Guild Kit came out this week. A lot of people will pick up those Guild Kits and then build off them into either casual decks or Commander decks. And this is a nice upgrade for that deck. But more commonly, people are building around some of the new cards that came out of Ravnica Allegiance. One of those is Persistent Petitioners. That's one of the big reasons this card is moving this week. Another is Lavinia Azorius Renegade. This plays well with her too. Number 2, Craterhoof Behemoth. You have Avacyn Restored going up $7.18 to $36.55. Modern Masters 2017 going up $11.04 to $39.97. This has been known to show up in some Legacy Elf decks, but that's not why it's going up right now in value. The reason it's going up again is because of Commander and a new card. That card is Prime Speaker Vanifar this time. Number 1, Sliver Hive Lord goes up $11.91 to $29.99. Slivers have gotten super hot recently. Keep an eye out for these going forward in the coming weeks and months. I do think a lot of people are going to be seeing these cards going up in value and decide they need to pull the trigger on them, which will result in them going up in value even further potentially. Alright, let's move on to our Vintage Spotlight. This is where we look at cards that are important to collectors as well as cards that see play in formats like Legacy, Vintage, and 93-94. First off, Mana Drain from Iconic Masters goes up $3.76 this week to $69.35. Good vintage cards. He's playing Commander as well. This will keep creeping up slowly until it eventually gets another reprint one day. Next we have Gaia's Cradle, which is from Urza's Saga. It is on the reserve list, but it did get a reprinting as a Judge promo back when they used to do that. Now, of course, the rules have changed since then, so that type of thing won't happen anymore. But this card goes up $8.12 this week to $358.12. This is good in Legacy Elf decks and Maverick decks, also Vintage Survival. Remember, this is a very solid Commander card as well. Sylvan Library from 4th edition goes up $12.11 to $38.99. This card's kind of funny. It's been spiking sort of like one at a time every week. We saw Eternal Masters go up, and then Legends went up, and then 5th edition went up. Well, now it's 4th edition's turn. This card is solid in Commander and very good in some Legacy decks too. Usually it's like a one of in a lot of builds like Golgari Depths and 4-color Loam, but it's always solid. Next we have an unlimited card, and these have been hot recently. Copy Artifact goes up $15 to $115. And this is a reserve list card, but it did get reprinted and revised if you're looking for a cheaper copy. And here is our other unlimited card on the list, Time Twister. This is on the reserve list, of course, going up $350 to $2,999.99. Now, the main reason for this increase this week is market manipulation. There are some people listing copies of this card at an extremely high price point, and that's pushing the average price up just a little bit. And it's back again. The Tabernacle at Pendrell goes up $466.80 this week to $2,630.49. This one doesn't really feel like market manipulation as much as we just have some higher grade copies out there in the marketplace. I found some near mint copies as well as graded copies, so that's pushing the price point up a little bit for the week. Okay, I got one card for a premium spotlight this week. Here's where we talk about foil cards. I don't like to do it too often because especially when you look at online prices, they can easily be manipulated. And a lot of times they get kind of spiky because there's not many data points out there. But here's one that I thought was interesting. And that card is the Friday Night Magic variant of Bottle Gnomes, going up $7.21 to $12.99. The reason this card is increasing is some speculation that maybe, just maybe, Electro Dominance is going to push the As Foretold Living End deck a little bit harder in Modern. Now, it hasn't gotten there yet. We haven't seen a big result at this point, but you never know. In another week or two, something could change. And if one of those decks does make it to a top 8, expect a lot of people to want to jump onto that build. Within the sideboard of many of those builds, it is common to find 2 or 3 copies of Bottle Gnomes. Alright, it's time for the big Commander Spotlight again. Much like the last few weeks, there's a lot of cards to go over. I'm just going to try to go really quickly and give you the highlights. So here we go. Land Tax from Battle Bond goes up $1.02 to $21.50. This card is just a solid Commander card, and it did get a little visibility in the last Game Nights episode a few weeks ago, which brought some attention to it again. Sword of Light and Shadow for Modern Masters goes up $1.05 to $31.49. Of course, you'll find this in Teysa builds. Sylvan Tutor, this goes up $1.06 to $52.16. This is from Portal, so it's kind of hard to find now in good condition. It is not on the reserve list or anything, but it has yet to be reprinted. I'm sure at some point it will be. And it does not hurt that this is a green card. Green has been popular in recent months because of some good additions from Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance. Anointed Procession, another card that plays well with Teysa. This one goes up $1.10 to $12.19 this week. Avacyn Angel of Hope, just always a solid card, up $1.14 to $24 for the Avacyn Restored version. The Iconic Masters version is also going up just a little bit this week, not quite $1, so I didn't bother to include it here. But generally, this is another card that will creep up until it gets reprinted again. Bane of Progress goes up $1.16 to $7.99. This is the first card in today's video that is moving because of Nikia of the Old Ways in Commander, but it's not going to be the last. Vampiric Tutor, 2 copies. Visions goes up $1.16 to $49.93. Eternal Masters up $1.47 to $55.97. Now, this card has been hot recently too, probably not by chance that a lot of cards in black and white have been going up in value considering Teysa has been so popular. Here you have a tutor that not only sees play in Commander, but also in Vintage. Charcoal Diamond from Commander 2014 goes up second week in a row, $1.49 this time to $3.75. Now, generally, this whole cycle has been popular since they put the new art on it here, and I do think those will all go up in value until we see them reprinted with that art again. But aside from that, it's probably not a coincidence that this is the one that gives you black mana. Sakashima the Imposter goes up $1.53 to $27.45, another very popular card in recent months. This plays great in the Euro Codex. Sliver Queen, of course we had another Sliver on here. This one is on the reserve list though, and it's going up $1.55 to $66.54. Doubling Season, the original Ravnica City of Guilds one, goes up $1.57 to $42. This card has been soft recently due to the reprinting in Battle Bond, but it appears those days are over. This has always been a great Commander card, but I have noticed recently that Atraxa builds are gaining a little traction again. A lot of cards from those decks seem to be going up in value, at least a little bit. Ravos Soul Tender goes up $1.67 to $11.25. You can only get this card in foil from the Commander 2016 product. You can probably guess why it's going up in value, though, in that color combination. It is seeing some play with Teysa. Another solid staple here, Rings of Brighthearth from Lorwyn, goes up $1.90 to $37.99. I haven't said it yet in the video, so here's my one time. Lorwyn cards, comparatively to other modern era Magic sets, had a lower print run, so this card tends to be spiky sometimes. It's a great Commander card generally, but recently it's been hotter with persistent petitioners out there. Xenagos, God of Revels, goes up $2.16 to $15.13, another card that is moving because of Nikia. Cold Storage from Tempest, this has never been reprinted, but it is not on the reserve list, going up $2.37 to $8.65, and this has been hot recently because of Rakdos the Showstopper. Nullstone Gargoyle goes up $2.38 this week to $3.69, another card that plays well with Nikia. Toothy Imaginary Friend goes up $2.46 to $4.47. What's the deal here? Well, maybe part of it is the Atraxa attraction I mentioned earlier. However, that's not the whole story here. Pleasant Kenobi actually put out an article on Channel Fireball this week and had a YouTube video that went along with it showing a Nick Fit deck running 2 copies of Toothy and 2 copies of Pier in the main. We'll get to Pier in just a second, but potentially these are some good commander cards that might actually turn out to be solid legacy cards. Lightning Greaves. This is the arch enemy version of the card. It's going up 246 to 772. We've seen other variants of this card jumping in recent weeks. It's just another really solid commander staple. Fits into many builds. Angus McKenzie. Now this is on the reserve list from Legends. It's up 250 this week to 216.88. It is expensive, but it is a good pillow fort card. Concordant Crossroads from Legends. The Chronicles version spiked recently. This one's going up 340 this week to 125. Another very solid commander card that has gone up in value in recent months due to a lot of good green cards coming from Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance again, but maybe no more so than Nikia, which has pushed this one recently. And of course, as I mentioned previously, here is Pure Imaginative Rascal going up 510 this week to 772. Alright, one card for the Pauper Spotlight. I bet you can't guess what it is. No, you were right. It's Oubliette. This again is the B variant for the second week in a row, going up $1.38 to $34.60. Of course, you'll find this in some of those mono black builds in Pauper. And the B variant is the one where you can read the casting cost a little bit easier. The A variant has the darker casting cost. Alright, that concludes the Market Watch for this week. I'll keep a close eye on the standard cards to see if there's any impact from the Mythic Championship. I'm not anticipating huge impacts, though. I'm sure there'll be some subtle ones, but a lot of the decks that we're seeing and the ones that appear to be performing well, at least up until this point, are decks we all kind of expected. The format's pretty diverse, but we kind of knew going into this weekend what we were going to see due to the GPs and the Star City Games Opens and such. There haven't really been a lot of big surprises so far this weekend, but I will continue to keep an eye out and let you know as always. Until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon and have a great day.